I'm Dr. Brenda Carter. I'm with Kasika Veterinary Clinic out of Geneva. We serve the dairies in Ontario County, Seneca, and Wayne, and northern Yates counties as well. And I've been working with Dairy One since I was a vet student. Learned the importance of it way back then, and have continued to work with Dairy Comp and Dairy One reports all of the 24 years that I've been practicing.
I'm Tom Phillips. I've been testing for 35 years. I've seen a lot of changes. When I first started, the majority of the dairies were 60, 70 cows. Now my average dairy is about 400 to 500 cows. A lot of changes in management. You see a lot of different styles. And what one works for one individual might not necessarily work for another. I think the key is to listen to your dairy farmers and find out what is important to them for their needs to help manage their farm.
I am Phil Hurst. I live about 15 minutes north of here. We have a 130, 140 cow family farm. Moved from Pennsylvania to New York 18 years ago. Bought the farm and we've been milking cows here ever since. And this year I say we are eking out a living.
I'm Richard Horning. My farm is in Savannah, New York. I started farming dairy in 2012, and I found that I needed to go with DHI or something. I got some herds from a couple different locations, and I just started with DHI as getting organized for one thing.
Good managed. Why would you encourage someone to test?
Well, I think that my feelings are, I'm not going to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. I try to point out what's your somatic cell count, how do you manage that if you don't know, other than, you've got cows showing signs. I focus a lot on repro because if you don't get cows pregnant, you don't have a future, basically. Getting cows bred is the key to profitability as far as I'm concerned. But there's many other things, but repro to me is extremely important because we get paid on volume. And fresh cows, beginning of their lactation is where you get your volume from. And if you get cows bred back in a timely fashion and have a decent calving interval, you're going to have calves on the ground for future, and you're going to have production. You're going to have milk in the tank to get paid. That's what we do this for.
For farmers, so I'm guessing you guys aren't any different than every other farmer out in the world. There's not enough hours in the day, right? So you have those 10 or 15 minutes in a day. What would be your first go-to reports, and where would you focus that energy when you're looking at records or reports?
Well, when I get my DHI packet back, I open it up. Probably first thing I look at is a rolling herd average, age at first calving, and the cull rate, cows entered and cows left the herd, see where I'm maintaining, and then total bulk tank sample, bulk tank somatic cell, butter, fat, and protein.
Do you make any decisions or management changes off of that? So if you see something you don't like in your age at first calving or your bulk tank, what sort of things do you go back out and do after that?
Good question. Yes, I manage. I basically manage a whole herd off of the records, but I go by individual. Once I'm culling decisions, all that is made off on an individual basis. I do enjoy comparing the local milk company, the creamery, to the somatic cell and DHI. I'd like to see how that corresponds. And it's surprisingly comparable, and I'm glad for that. But yes, once we go into culling, we'll go through all the records, her somatic cell, everything. I wouldn't do without it. It's not good.
Yeah, and for myself, I look at the packet too when it comes back. The somatic cell is a big one to watch. You know, you got some new ones that are getting up there, you know, treatment, or if maybe call or whatever the best decision is on that cow. Repro is another one that I watch. As you can, when the packet's new yet, you can see how things are. I guess the one thing I found for myself right after herd check, it's pretty easy just to throw the tablet on the desk and forget about it, but that's something you need to discipline as a farmer that we need to carry through with setup shots or whatever it takes to get them back on board. Keep the days of milk down.
So what ways do you help your farms? So, you know, you can give them all those monthly printouts here, they get their monthly packet, and you find it there, the monthly packet unopened when you get there the next month from the previous month, or those papers you printed out, you know, lug your printer in there, printed them all out, and they're still sitting on the bulk tank. So what are some ways that you help your farms that they open those reports and they keep those, they take them off the tank and actually use them?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think the majority of the farmers probably use the reports that I leave before they'll look at the packet. I mean, looking at the packet, I can't do anything for somatic cell. That's probably the first thing he's going to look at because, you know, I don't have that ability to look at right away. But I think that, you know, hey, we got some cows to dry off, or hey, you know, we got a cow that fell through the cracks on getting bred. I think those are the things that, to be honest with you, they'll probably tell you is probably just as much as important as the stuff that comes monthly because, like I said earlier, listen to your farmer. What is important to you? What can I provide for you as a tool in a report that's going to help you manage something better? And I think that's been the key to my success is listening and providing what my farm needs to help them do a better job.
And Brenda, in your opinion, what are some things that farms could do to get more value from their tests? So if they're testing and they're getting some of those reports, what are some other things that they could do to help bring a little more value back?
Well, for one thing, some of the farms can spend a little more time looking at some of the things. Sometimes, you know, there are certain things, like Tom said, that the farm really focuses in on, but sometimes they're only just cleaning the surface of the amount of information that's in there. One thing that, because I work with both small farms and large farms, the large farms are all on Dairy Comp, and so they have the records at their fingertips, and they can make the changes to the cow cards, you know, basically at the same time that it happens. But that's there's a lot of information that Dairy Comp and your records will track that you can give that information to the tester when he is there. So, for instance, with reproduction, it will give you the summary of what your pregnancy rate is, what your average days open are. But if you're wondering, is my off-sync performing well? What about the cows that I'm breeding in standing heat? Are they getting pregnant or not? And how does that compare to off-sync? You can actually give your tester that information, so not just the breeding information, but you can also just make a note standing heat or off-sync. And so we can actually split out your reproductive performance because it's, in working with the larger dairies, sometimes we will see big differences between off-sync breedings and standing heats, and depending upon what those differences are, it'll help us to focus in and basically solve the problem so that they're both performing well. And so that's one way, by giving your tester a little more information, we can fine-tune your reproductive program to see if maybe there's an opportunity that certain areas, whether it's your shop program or whatever, could be performing better. Along those lines, also disease information. That's something that most of the small farms don't record, but if you gave your tester, Tom, or whoever it is, information, you know, I treated this cow for mastitis, or this cow had a DA. That's information that we can look at on our end and be able to follow that stuff. That, you know, I don't have that information for most of my small farms because they don't record it, but it's something that you could be recording if you let Tom know.
Step back, Brenda, and just so you're talking about the small farms. They don't have on-farm software. So how do you get all their records? How are you able to access that and be able to help them out?
Okay, yeah. So with the farm's permission, I'll ask them if I can have access to their records, and then you'll have to get a code that's off of your sheet from Dairy One. It's called the RAC code, and that 4-digit code will allow us to go into your farm if we know your 21 series herd code number and then your RAC code. Then I can go in and I can download your information, and I can say we do that for most of the herds that we do regular herd health with. Certainly with the bigger farms, and then also with some of the smaller farms that want to go over their records. It's not something that I do with all of my farm, but I think that's farms, but I think it's an opportunity for the ones that I do go over their records. I just have a list of reports, like Tom says that he'll leave at the farm. I have a list of favorite reports that I like to have run, and then I have my technician Mary Ellen. She'll run those reports for me, so when I go out to the farm, I'll have your latest test information, and I can take a look and see at a glance how your herd has been performing the past month.
Thanks. Yep. And so the trend here with milk prices hasn't been good, and we know everybody's been fighting that. So has anything changed with using your records with milk prices changing? So maybe to our farmers and to Tom, is there anything you've been doing differently? And even Brenda, if you had something that you've been doing to help farms, or anything you've changed with your reports or looking at with the margins getting a bit tighter?
That's a tough question. I would say no, because I try to provide the information for them to manage in the good times. You know, if they're managing in the good times, they're going to manage even, you know, they might spend a little more time looking at those records in the tough times. I mean, it's just kind of human nature. When the price of milk is $25, guys slacked off on stuff, and you can see it. And you point it out, but you know, hey, you know, when the price of milk is where it is now, I think maybe they'll spend a little bit more time glancing at some of those things and trying to fine tune those things. But I think it's important to try to emphasize we got to do the same kind of job in good times as well as in bad times. Because, you know, hey, if the price of milk is $25, I mean, why not make a little bit more by staying on top of it? It's kind of a crazy environment that we've lived in. It's been, you know, the same way for centuries. It seems nothing ever changes with the price of milk. You always have your highs and you have your lows. We got to manage the same all the time. Got to be consistent. And if we're providing the right information for them to make those decisions, then, you know, they should be successful.
Yeah, I would agree with Tom. I can't slack off. I try not to slack off when the milk drops or goes up, because you have lost opportunity in just one cow. Letting her go, slip through the cracks, it costs money. And we're paying for DHI service, and I think it's important to stay right on it, like he said, through the thick and the thin. I appreciate Tom's challenges. He's good at bringing you on your toes. Say, hey, here's a lost opportunity, and here's a compliment. I enjoyed Tom.
Yeah, I guess I would have to agree too with that. Staying right on it with, you know, good price, poor price. The one thing I would add maybe is the cost. If low milk price, your cost, your lower end cows might not be making their profit quite as long as they drop off in milk. If the milk price drops lower, so your income over your costs might change, which could change your status a little bit on when that cow, especially if it's a no-breed cow or something that you are hanging on to till a certain point, or if it's just a tail end cow that's not performing.
Thanks. Brenda, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just that I would echo that I think in times of low milk prices, I think it's even more important to scrutinize your records, because there's some things that maybe you could let slide when the price of milk is higher, but like Richard just said, you know, where that point at which that cow is no longer making you money is going to change with the milk price. And so maybe you could have afforded to keep her around a while longer with a higher milk price, but you really have to scrutinize things a little bit more. And if you don't know where the cow stands, I don't know how you make those decisions.
And Brenda, working on the milk quality side, what's some of the importance of routine testing to you guys when you start looking at milk quality and helping farms get down and getting those premiums that are getting a little bit harder to reach?
Yeah, so that's where I think one of the most important things that Dairy One provides is the somatic cell information. For us as a clinic, when farmers have a clinical case of mastitis and they bring in a sample and they want to culture and find out if it's something that needs to be treated or not, we actually, if we have access to the farm's records, then we go in and we look up the individual history on the cow and see, is this a new infection, is this a chronic infection, what is the cow doing otherwise. Sometimes we'll get a culture on a cow that's a DNB cow and she's making 50 pounds. And even if she has something treatable, our recommendation is you might want to take a look at this cow. Do you really want to put antibiotics into her when she just dropped off to 50 pounds and you're not planning, she's not pregnant? So those sorts of decisions influence treatment at the individual cow level. And then also for our farms that are managing their bulk tanks to keep it under 100,000, and we do have several farms, large and small, that are managing consistently bulk tank somatic cell counts less than 100,000. And especially when they're right on that bubble, you know, as soon as we get that test information, we'll look and see if there are any new high cows, and then send them out with the CMT panel. The DHI, that's your high-tech somatic cell information. Your CMT panel is your low-tech somatic cell information. Your DHI flags the cows for you, and then you can go out and CMT. Sometimes those cows will clear up pretty quickly, and you don't have to do anything with her. Other times you may find that there's a problem, even though her milk looks normal. So I think having that somatic cell information is really critical to being able to manage, especially if you're trying to keep your bulk tank under 100,000, to see who those new infection cows are and to be able to go after them and just see if it's something that needs intervention or not. But you know, when it comes to milk quality, everybody can pick out the cow with clinical mastitis, but for every cow you see with clinical mastitis, there are several others that either have been are infected or have recently been infected that are impacting your bulk tank somatic cell count that you don't know anything about because the milk looks completely normal.
Thanks. And Tom, why would you encourage your farms to stay on routine tests? So milk prices are getting tight and it might make sense to drop down and go to every other month. Why would you encourage them to stay on that routine test?
Well, a couple things. A couple months ago, I had a farm call me and said, listen, could you come test maybe a week early? We've got a situation in our bulk tank. And they're one of those farms that's always maintains under 100,000. And they're also one of those farms that is with a milk company that pays a pretty nice bonus for that kind of quality. And they had an issue, and they couldn't find it. They've been through every cow. They milked about 200 cows, and they just couldn't find the cow. And so I had an opportunity to slip them in on a test, and the samples went in right away. And they found that cow. And I don't know the figures. I don't know how much money, that difference was, but I'm sure it was more than enough to pay for the testing. Another situation that I see,
It's plugged in.
if you're making 80 pounds of milk, and the price of milk was, let's say $14, push the pencil a little bit. I always tell guys, if you're averaging 80 pounds, you've got a cow that's below 50 pounds. I mean, draw the line, 30 pounds of milk under herd average is costing you money. And some guys just don't get it. I don't understand what part of that you don't get. Grain is expensive. Feed is expensive. You're out there busting your butt, trying to get crops in and this and that. And you're losing money. And anybody that doesn't test has any idea how much milk these cows are giving. How do you manage that?
Do you have a story, Tom, of putting you on the spot here of a farm that had never tested before? You helped them get started, and the biggest surprising thing that they found was starting to test?
Well, first thing when somebody starts testing, and Richard can attest to this because I got him started, I told him right up front, other than somatic cell, it's going to take you time to really realize the benefits of testing, because you just don't get the benefits immediately except for somatic cell, because we got to compile the data. I mean, I'm looking at a bunch of cows. I got to enter, breed dates and all this stuff, and it takes time to compile the data to really help you make some, really hard management decisions. So I tell guys, I tell that up front. It's important for you to realize you're not going to see the benefits right away. It's an investment.
Thanks, Tom. So for our farmers, so you guys have talked about using somatic cell and using for culling decisions. What other day-to-day management reports do you guys turn to from those packets? Are you using other things to help manage your herd? Breedings or dryings, calvings, anything like that?
Actually, I use the reports Tom prints off at test day, even on a daily basis, more than that packet. He goes through a tree for me.
And what kind of reports is he leaving for you that you're using?
He prints off my from high cal to low cals based on production, the dry list, ones that are going to be dry for the next month and a half. It's supposed to be dried on. Heifer age list. I use that every week, every herd check, every 2 weeks to PG young heifers. The somatic cell report, the cal value. That's based on a whole bunch of figures. I don't know what they all are. It goes into cal value. Look at that for culling. Heifers do, cows do. Another command, yes. My daughter's name, Regina. That's all the cows. That's all the production, if she's pregnant or not, days in milk. Everything's on a, happens to be Regina command. I go through those records every day. The boys say, so-and-so, number 750's in heat. I'll go to the Regina list and I'll say, oh, she's fresh so long, she's not time to breed, or she's bred twice already. And I'll look on the current tablet. Yeah, by the way, I don't have a computer. I don't do dairy comp. I don't have a computer, so I'm all paper. As backward as that seems. But those lists that he prints out is something I use every day. Once a week we dry cows. Every Friday morning we go over that list, and based on somatic cell, whether we treat her or not, or history of somatic cell. So those are the day-to-day decisions, even more than the packet themselves.
Perfect. And so I'm guessing not everybody has a daughter named Regina, right? So is that something you worked on special with Tom? Is that a report that you guys worked on over a couple of months to get information together of what you were needing? How did that report come about?
Well, it's just a report, but for most, I'd say for most of my farms, especially the ones that don't have a computer, I always print off the top cow to bottom cow, and that way we can pinpoint the cows on the bottom of the list. The second thing is I always print off is a list of every bit of information about that cow. This month's milk, last month's milk, production to date, her persistency, which I think persistency is important. Previous somatic cell count, times bred, breeding date, whether she's pregnant or not, lactation sometimes. But everything's on that, everything about that cow and a butcher. And I just named it something, so I just printed it out.
Good. How about passing that down? Just how do you use your day-to-day reports? Or sorry, we didn't go all the way down the table there.
Yeah, I guess I would say I use that packet that Tom leaves pretty all the time too. You know, that's what I go to. I don't have a computer in the barn either for information, so I go to the packet, and I guess I got to the point where if there's something that I felt would help me, I would challenge Tom on it. Can you make this or that to make my life easier and his harder, I guess. But even anything like from a hoof trimming schedule, or we call it a clean out list for a precinct setup. You can almost get what you want if you ask for it.
I think we have a sample of your cleanup list there on the screen, and it's in the packets that were passed out too. So it looks like giving the loot shots and getting the cows bred. So I think if people are interested in that, it's in your packets. And so it sounds like you guys use that quite a bit. How would your lives change, or would you let them change, and would you let anyone take your packets away?
I think we'd be pretty lost if we wouldn't have our packets real quick. I guess what I was going to add to that packet is only as good as the information we give to Tom to enter. So, keeping after all the entries is real important, which I think all these farmers know that.
And how do you do that? That's a really good point. How do you keep that day-to-day stuff?
Pretty much when you do an action to something, whether it be a shot or just a calving or anything, you enter it right away as soon as you can that day, so that you don't miss it when you call a cow, or just pretty much the whole way through. You got to enter it on paper so that when Tom comes to milk test, he can enter it on his sheets, that we can have something to go off of.
And were you guys that regimented in keeping the paper records before, or was that something he helped you implement? Were you keeping the paper, like every time you bred a cow, were you jotting that down before, or was that something that when you started testing that Tom helped implement on the farm, the keeping of the paper records day to day?
Well, I think he probably provided some sort of, it's a Dairy One paper that has lots of different things you can do on it, and you just enter everything on the right bracket, and that's something we started with, and then he takes it from there.
Same with me. I entered that the fresh cows actually get recorded in the milking parlor in a little tablet, and then before Tom comes, I'll get that parlor book, and that'll get all the fresh dates and what they had, boar, heifer, calving ease, everything will get transferred to what I call the DHI tablet. That's a tablet that he supplied, and that gives breeding. The technician will write their breedings on that tablet, and I'll put the fresh cows and call cows on that. So that is something Tom has set up for us that we started.
I'm going to say that I'm probably guilty of when I put a herd on test. I say, if you want me to test for you, then this stuff needs to be written down, because anything I provide after this that you make me make up for you is worthless. So it's important that you take the time to write it down, because you can't manage it if it's fictitious information. I mean, if you just write any old dry date down or whatever, it's worthless. I mean, you can't make accurate management decisions if you guess when to breed cows, because I think she freshened 2 weeks ago. I mean, I know people miss a cow now and then. I understand. But I mean, when I first started, wow, stuff was written here, there, everywhere. And I said, that's not going to work. You want me to do this, it's going to be written right down here. It's important.
You guys keep letting Tom back, right? There's some people that said they wanted to give you a hard time. The crowd's been pretty quiet through this, so I just thought
It's amazing how many times I'll be preg checking a cow and she looks like she should be in the dry cow pen. And, you know, you ask them, how long ago did she calve? Well, I don't, you know, I guess it's probably been a little while. And I can tell just by looking at her, this cow isn't worth breeding anymore. But sometimes I think it's probably for some of those herds that go on test the first time, that would probably be a shock to them, I think, to see how far out some of those cows are and looking at how much milk they're making. You know, like Tom said, if you put the pencil to it, it doesn't take long to figure out that that cow isn't making money anymore. And more importantly, you know, if she's not bred back yet and she's not ready to dry off soon, she's not going to make you money because she's going to continue to eat. Even if you got her pregnant today, she's got to continue to eat for the next 9 months before she's going to be come back up in milk production. During that time, she's just costing you money. So in this dairy economy, you really need to know where your cows are and make wise decisions in terms of breeding. You know, don't throw good money after bad if the cow's already past the point of no return. And honestly, in some of my farms that aren't on test, I see that. The farms that are on test, a lot of times that during preg check, they'll end up spouting off some information to me about that cow. Well, yes, well, she had, you know, and of course, it's always great if it's a cow that's milking really well. She made 120 pounds on this last test, you know, they're always pretty quick to point those things out. But the very fact that they know that, I think, is a benefit because they can make better decisions on those animals.
Thanks. For our farmers, besides milk testing, are there other things that you're measuring on farm or other sort of records or services that you use regularly?
That question, Judy, was on this paper, and I didn't know how to answer it. Are you connecting it to DHIA, or just even spray records, or?
Yeah, what kind of things are you guys measuring on your farm and keeping track of, and what sort of things are you working with records and consultants day to day to make your farm profitable and work?
Yes, record keeping, and I'm weak in that sometimes, but whether it's cropping, planting dates, and all, manure hauling, what we did to the fields as far as chisel plowing or no-tilling. I'm not sure I'm quite on the right page, Judy, but...
You're setting the agenda, it's okay. There's no wrong answer today.
Well, yes, record keeping is, to me, is very important. I carry a date book in my pocket, and everything gets put in that, and then it gets transferred to the farm records, the field records, and so forth. Back to Dairy One, to DHI, I tell you, with my lack of memory, I would be lost if it wouldn't be for the records that come through Tom to DHI. I couldn't do it without it.
Yeah, and I guess for myself, I would say they could be helpful for even the milk component testing and stuff. For even your nutritionist, he can watch what components are doing for simple adjustments or different adjustments in the feed ration on the MUM and all that, butterfats. The other one is with this all on record, the vets can use it too, like Brenda said, to see on ahead what you have before they get there. Certain high Semitic cell cows and so forth.
Are you guys doing some forage testing through your nutritionists?
We have basically we gave him the rack code and everything so he can watch.
So he's doing similar to Brenda, grabbing your records. So Tom, I'm going to put you on the spot. You ready?
Yeah.
So why do you do what you do? Why do you get up at crazy hours and drive the miles and go out in the snowstorms and what drives you? What puts a smile on your face?
You shouldn't answer me that question right now.
He's on vacation this week, guys, so we're gonna forgive whatever comes out of his mouth. So apparently he's been showing me pictures of the Adirondacks and it's really nice and the water's great. So we'll take it with a grain of salt today.
I've been doing it 35 years. And I do it because the relationships I have with people I work with. I have a passion for those people. I've got a relationship with those people. I have a friendship with those people. And as much as I'd like to do something else with the rest of the second half of my life, I don't know, it's a challenging situation for me to think about what else I would do because of the passion I have. I don't know. I don't know anything else. It's all I've ever done. I've been milking cows since I was 10 years old. I've been doing this job for 35 years. The people I work with, my farmers are the best.
Thanks. My paper's getting low and it's a little warm. So does anyone have any questions from the audience? Or anything on the panel that you guys would like to add? Things that, we've talked about that value that you see from Testa. Anything that you would want to say to a neighbor who's on the fence? I don't know if I should test. I don't know if it's worth the cost. We've talked about some of that. Just something you would send them home with and say that this is something you should think about. Brenda, for those farms that are having you price check the almost dry cows, just some take-home message that if you could just say, boy, you should do this.
Yeah, again, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So
We didn't pay her to say that either.
I think it's been ingrained in me over the years, but no, I don't know how farms do it, quite honestly, without test. I mean, they certainly rely on their calendar a lot more, which even the farms that are on test, it's kind of nature, I think, for guys when a cow has a calf to go ahead and write it on the calendar, but it's a lot easier down the road when you're trying to look up that cow. You've got your breeding wheel, and that'll tell you, when it moves past the point where it's time to breed her, and if it's down the wheel a little bit, she's been in milk for a long time, but you don't know how much milk she's making and how many times she bred her. If you're on test, you can take a look at one sheet of paper and it'll give you all that information. One of the things, I think, especially in these times of low milk prices, I think we can really help our producers if we have reports that we can go over with them that show, look, I noticed, your preg rate on your cows is really good, but why are there 17-month-old heifers that haven't been bred yet? Well, I know why, because they were out planting corn and sowing alfalfa and doing all the things that you have to do, and so I can use your DHI records to help nudge you and say, okay, this is starting to slip through the cracks. So it's my job to put you back on track again, to bring this to your attention, and you need to focus on this area. So I think it helps me to help my producers stay on track, because everybody, you get busy with crops. Especially the smaller farms. You guys, you're the one-man show. You're not just, where the large farms have somebody that their only job is to manage the cows and keep track of the cows. You guys have to manage the cows and plant the crops and harvest the crops and do everything. And so any tool that you can utilize to help you stay focused and let the other people that work with you help you stay focused so things don't slip through the cracks, I think is a benefit, and that's where I see that's where test information falls.
Great. Tom, for those people still aren't convinced, parting message.
We got a question from
So,
there.
we got a question.
Warren, what percentage of your farm are not on test?
Not on test.
What percentage of farms that Brenda works with that are not on test?
They're not on test.
Is that-
Overall, of the monthly and weekly herd healths that I do, I would say at over 75% are on test. And the ones that aren't, I'm usually trying to encourage them to go on. And I know it's a tough sell with a low price, but it really is, it can make you money. It's, like Tom said, it's an investment. So I certainly feel like I can be of more value to my farms if I can take a look at things and know where they stand. If the farm's not keeping any records, you know, a lot of times I'll say, well, let me look at, oh, I can't look at that. You're not keeping track of that. So it definitely helps me to provide better service to them. But I would say at least 75%, if not more, are on test.
Just because there's money in the checkbook doesn't always mean there can't be more.
Yeah, and I would say for that neighbor that's, just not sure, I guess my thought would be, how can you make good decisions if you don't really know what you got? I mean, I don't know how many times certain thing goes on with a cow, whether it came into heat for the third time, and I say, well, that cow needs to go down the road. I had enough of her, and you go look at the records, and you say, oh, she's still milking 100 plus pounds. We ought to try her one more time, get her 2 more times, get her settled, and things like that without the being on test, you wouldn't really know where you are.
I never had a neighbor ask me whether they should test or not, but if that would happen, I would say the ROI, the return on investment for that 30 or whatever dollars we're spending per cow per year will pay back 3-4 times for the amount of for the cost of raising replacements, for the cost of having a below break-even cow in your herd. That's the DHI testing is a small portion of cost.
I have one more question. This is not surprising that people have to deal with me every day. I have one more question. So is there anything for our farmers, is there anything from your records that you're not getting now that you wish you had? Something that you say, boy, if I just had this piece, it would be easier. Something we can challenge Tom with on the rest of his vacation.
Yeah.
I just went over Tom this month, July. I said, I need to know how often my heifers are bred. I looked through my summary sheet. How often am I breeding my heifers? Everything's paper, So I know what the cows are, whatever services per pregnancy. However you did it, you came up with a figure then. And I'm breeding heifers, what was it, 1.2 or I don't remember what it was, but I hadn't seen that. It didn't take him long to punch buttons.
Yeah, I guess as far as I don't really have a lot, there are months when you have a lower month on production. You get your packet from Tom and he has everything there in front of you, and you sometimes you ask the question, why are we down 3 pounds of milk, or what's causing repro to do what it's doing, and as far as having a paper that would explain all that, it really isn't practical, but I thought maybe a good milk tester would at least have an answer for you, or bring an extra Mont Dew along for me to drink.
Perfect. Any questions? Anybody else in the audience? Yeah, go ahead.
We were hearing some about the heifers there and the cloth breeding. Sometimes we read that you guys think you only had 85% of heifers. What are the thoughts for raising? Are we throwing money away raising extra heifers?
Well, that's a great topic. Number of heifers to raise. Anyone want to?
What do I always preach, Limpert?
Oh.
There's two things. One can never have too much feed, and one can never have too many heifers. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't care how much it costs to raise a heifer. How much does it cost to keep a cow in your herd milking 40 pounds? It's not bred. It's got a 800,000 Semitic cell count. And you guys, not all you guys, but some guys just sit there and they play around with that cow. Send her. You got heifers coming because you got enough heifers. So I take any of those guys from Cornell University or all these experts that tell you that it costs you $2,500 to raise a heifer, which it's ridiculous. But take the difference from the amount of money you got from beef and the amount of extra milk you're getting from a 40-pound beef cow to an 80, 85-pound heifer, which most of you guys have. And what's the difference? I'm not going to argue it. All I'm going to do is say those two things. You can't have enough feed. You can't have enough.
Brenda, do you have anything you want to add to that, or?
As long as you don't run out of farm.
Yeah.
You try to pack them in and then you end up with a lot of heifers that are maybe not optimal quality because they have a lot of corn disease pressure.
Yep.
So I think that's something where, talk to your nutritionist and your veterinarian and look to see. Having extra heifers is a luxury. And then the question is if you have more heifers than you have space, and if you have, it's easy if, like Tom says, if you've got the 40-pound cow with the high somatic cell count, it's easy to make that decision. But if you've gone through and you pick the low-hanging fruit and you still have a herd of cows that you really like working with, and you still have more heifers in the pipeline, well then, you've got some springers to sell, or, see, I do, with the good regrow. Good regrow.
With using those reports and getting them bred back on time, getting first service in there at a reasonable day in mouth, and we're seeing a lot of those heifers, sex semen. We're starting to see a lot more.
Production increases 80 to 100 pounds, which I never thought in my day I would have seen. It's crazy. I mean, there's these cows that you got heifers coming, and she's got an udder issue, or you can always find a cow. You got heifers coming in that are making. I do peak and persistence. I do lactation curves, and you've got cows that are making heifers peaking at 85 pounds.
I think Brenda's point, talking to a nutritionist, working with your vet, making sure you have good records to know, do you have some of that low-hanging fruit that Tom's talking about that we need to get rid of, and then working and figuring out what the right number is. And I think that is some farm dependent, farm, what's the right word I'm looking for? Farm specific, thank you. It's farm specific, yes. So I think those are some great recommendations. Any other questions? All right. Well, let's thank our panel. Thank these guys for being put on the spot here.